Hi.
Oh,
So just start by introducing yourself and telling me what piece you're presenting here.
yeah. My name is Viv. I am founder of Output Field, an arts organization dedicated to redistributing clout. And we're here today to talk about our debut exhibition on New Art City called Skin Garden. And it's a three-room exhibition with all of the rooms centered around breaking down expectations of bodies, but also more specifically digital bodies, the way they exist online and in 3D art spaces, which is a pretty heteronormative space historically. So, yeah, this whole exhibition is a collection of works by people who are, fall outside of that or make work about bodies that fall outside of those heteronormative norms.
Yeah, I think that's a really timely discussion to be having. And tell me more about or when did you release it again? Was that during the year one festival?
I think it was during the Year One Festival of 2020. Was it 2020 or 2021?
I think it was probably around this time in 2021. So I think this where I think the piece just turned two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Tell me more about the workflow of creating it. Had you curated a show before?
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny. I'd never curated a show before. I had done sort of tasks for an exhibition that could be related to curating in school before, but this was totally different. The whole sort of thesis of Output Field as an art organization is to try to band artists together that sort of are overlooked by institutions and haven't received that sort of blue check validation of an institution necessarily. And the approach behind the exhibition followed that for sure. Most of these artists I contacted through Instagram. A lot of it was like early pandemic, this huge onslaught of digital artists really leaning into this new medium or this medium. And yeah, there was just a lot going on online and particularly Instagram. And so I just like hit up all these artists that were making sick work related to the body. And um, it was musicians, sound artists, um, digital artists, visual artists, and we also have tattoo artists. So, just a bunch of different people, different artists circulating around bodies with different viewpoints. We tried to really champion non-men, gender non-conforming people, people of color, fat people into this show. We started out with the tattoo exhibition. I'm a tattooer, and one of the three rooms is called Walk-ins Welcome. And that room is basically showcasing a couple artists that are folding in like digital image making strategies, tools to design their tattoos. And we made this room showcasing their flash available designs for tattooing. And we also made a soundscape, which was a collaboration with you, Sammie. Yes, I recorded sounds of tattooing, plastic crinkling, machine whirring, um, different buzzes and ink sounds and stuff like that. And you sprinkled some of those sounds across the room. And that was the first show. And then that sort of ballooned into two other rooms, but technically three rooms if you count the lobby, um, with bigger themes about bodies beyond tattooing. Yeah.
I'm just all of these interviews end up being some like trail of involuntary memory. I'm just remembering what it felt like to be inside of Bodies Unhinged. I'm really excited to look in that one in particular.
Yeah, that one is a real long one. It's really pays to like sit inside and just like you don't have to drive too much. But yeah, I really love that one. It was a fun time. Like we really folded in a lot of theory about bodies. We have this essay from Gordon Hall about um, his trans perspective on the turn of phrase the body and how that sort of singularity of the word reduces like a huge range of bodies into one monolith. Um, and we turned that into a soundscape with the help of Bella Baguena. Um,
I
yeah.
remember you making some really awesome memes about it too. It would be really cool to archive those. Um,
Yeah, we'll splice those in or something. Yeah, I feel like the whole tempo of the show is very like fast and internet, but also just like trying to have nice place to just sit and watch and have some calmness that I feel like a bunch of other exhibitions or a few other exhibitions achieve really well, like Alice's Eat Me show. Really sick.
yeah, that's one of my favorites. So you were talking about this coming during like early pandemic when there's all of this stuff happening. I'm curious, like, how did the pandemic affect your practice and how did it affect the work?
Mm, it was very holistically affected by the pandemic, I would say. I think like just the nature of digital, this digital medium was super, just like supercharged the whole space. So many artists that maybe wouldn't have the time to devote to honing their skills in making 3D art were, suddenly finding so much time to do so. And just the availability of people, I feel like during that time it just everyone was down to like work on something and contribute something, and thank God someone asked me to do this thing, or like wow, this thing that I've been working on as an artist and just like exploring digital 3D art and rendering, like suddenly there's a place for it to live. And so there was just a lot of openness and optimism and excitement around the medium in general. So I think that definitely affected it. But beyond that, I think just digital connection in general seemed so much more legitimate, and it really allowed for me to hit up these artists that I really respect and think so highly of and feel like I got a chance at this, and like they're reading their DMs right now. They got nothing better to do. um, so I don't know. I think in terms of accessibility, both ways, just like an artist that has never been in a physical exhibition, accessing an opportunity in this digital one, and also me as a curator who, I don't have an MBA or MFA. I don't have, art school experience per se, but or like the network, but nonetheless, like everyone at home, everyone online made it super fluid and porous, that process.
Totally. And like, yeah, because you mentioned you're a tattooer. Like, what was your practice like before the pandemic, and sort of how did it evolve when you were kind of presented with the opportunity to curate like this?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things about being a tattooer that uh, affected the way this happened was just feeling the mm, fluidity of an artist community that was so passionate about this one medium. I feel like as a tattooer, even beginner tattooers, like, I mean, there's a mix of cultures of like accessibility and like welcoming and like welcomingness. But I feel like in newer age tattooing, in experimental tattooing, there's a lot of kindred feeling between people in the same vibe, working on the same genre. And yeah, just talking to them online, even though they're like thousands and thousands of miles away, felt very within reach. And so I kind of felt how in reach that was when I hit up and curated the first room, walk-ins welcome. There's someone in Moscow, someone in Seoul, and it just felt very fluid and everyone was down and excited. So I feel like that really boosted my confidence and I don't know, the fortitude of the curation process, just like feeling like, yeah, there's like sick artists everywhere and they're down to chat and down to collab and you could do this if you wanted to on Instagram DMs or whatever on Zoom.
Yeah, and it's like you don't really have it's I feel like in the old world it's like okay, so you're a tattooer, okay, so you're a painter, but I think you don't really have to be one thing. And especially at that time, people were like, "Oh, I really have to like look at what I'm doing differently," because I mean there was a long time when you just couldn't be tattooing, period.
Yeah. I think also on another from another angle, I think the pandemic and like the cooped upness of it made people think about their bodies a lot. Like I know so many people that have made major changes to their body through the pandemic, be it like something as innocuous as tattooing or like transitioning. Like it was a very introspective time and lots of time in the room in front of the mirror, and I feel like there was a big boom of tattooing happening and body thoughts. So that was also a factor.
Totally. Um, and so I know you also have a background in like architecture and industrial design. Had you worked much with virtual space before, whether online or on a local machine?
Never virtual space, like Blender type 3D modeling, CAD type stuff, yes, but like it was just for industrial design, it's just for making a product, making a physical plastic thing, Like it was really nice to at least have the base knowledge of the infrastructure of a 3D modeling program, to just like jump into this new manifestation of it that I'd found. But yeah, I wouldn't say like much of what I learned in school has like informed this.
Totally. I guess I want to shift a little bit more to like memory. Like, so
Yeah.
this space is like 2 years old. I imagine you've probably popped back in kind of recently in advance of us talking, but like, I'm curious, like, how did it feel to return after probably a long absence?
I think with any art, it's like any art that you make, it's like right the second you finish it and you step back and you're just like, ugh, like this part, that part, like isn't where I thought it would be. But I think if you step away from it, like it just feels much more whole. The more time passes, it feels a lot more whole. And yeah, it's nice to have a fresh lens on it with despite having like a deep understanding of like how it was made. I was watching like my curator tour on YouTube right before this to like cram for my own interview basically. But it was just really fun to hear where all these like things came from. Like um the room for uh the room for Bodies Unhinge, or the like figure in Bodies Unhinge, the dancing figure was like I was reminded by my YouTube video that it was like based on movements from queer dancers that were like motion captured, um yeah, from the artist. I was like, whoa, that's super cool.
I don't
And
think if I even like clocked that at the time.
yeah, Google IOR 50 queer movement archive, maybe something like that. So that this is like motion capture that they had collected and just like had as a thing, like a tool. And this was their second time implementing it, this project with Bodies Unhinged. And then the soundscape for that is sourced by all of our queer community, reading this essay by my co-curator of this space, Venus and Foil. It was this essay about how the club environment disrupts the borders of flesh and elicits this sort of oneness feeling amongst queer people. The intensity of the club music and the togetherness of it all is like very enrapture vibes. And we had some of our friends, our queer friends, read salient excerpts from that essay, and that got like remixed by Betty Apple for Bodies Unhinged Soundscape. So there's just so many cool like source material that I forgot about, and yeah, it was nice to be reminded of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how you kind of universalized it. Like, I think we all step away from something and immediately like point out all the things that we don't like. But it's like everybody has such a unique response to like how they look back at their work. And so my last question is more to that end. Like, how do you view archiving in your practice? Like from a personal sense, like how do you store things? How do you return to things? And in a general sense, like how do you feel about archives?
I'm like a hugely sentimental person. I'm in love with the concept of archiving. I love archiving. I also feel like it's like a compulsive thing that I do. And so it's this funny mixture of like feeling like I have to really systematically like get everything down or it's not going to be true, and like kind of rejecting the natural erosion that time has to like content or whatever. And then also like it's this like really amorphous, like gushy, sentimental, nostalgic feeling that's driving the whole thing. So I don't know, it's an interesting duality of like neurotic, but then also like, oh, no, nice. And I was reading about archives, and Jack Halberstam has this concept that he coined called a silly archive. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't even brought it up because I couldn't even tell you what he means by that. But I'm gonna project my own like interpretation on it, which is just like a queer sensibility to collecting things, sort of embracing a non-linearity to it. Like I engage in archiving in like a really systematic way sometimes, like trying to jot down my family recipes and like super categorically like get it all down in an Excel sheet. But then I have like a folder on my desktop that's just called Screenshot Confessional. And it's like, it's just all the screenshots that I don't have the heart to delete like on my desktop. And that's like, I think that's a silly archive.
Yeah, it's like the act of collecting or like choosing what to save. It like infuses the archive with your perspective, and it's like archives are never neutral, and it's kind of like they're evidence of like an active process.
Yeah, I really like that nature of them. Like, I've been thinking in my personal practice a lot about archival and like cultural memory and stuff like that. Just like trying to think about how to bottle up my family wisdom from my elders. And that process is like, I wish it could be like, part of me really wishes I could just like itemize it and like get everything down, but it's just an impossible task. And so I've learned to sort of embrace this like flexible, silly, queer approach to it that yeah, I feel like adds a lot of dimension to it. I feel like one thing I've noticed about oral history projects and like time-based material like that is like it's so linear, and it's like consuming it is quite passive. No shade. Like I think that's has its place, and I love that, and I consume it. But I feel like when you have a silly archival approach, it really makes digging in a lot more, I don't know, multimodal, a lot more fun, a lot different every time. And that's sort of the whole point of like what you're trying to archive, right? If we're talking about art and wisdom, like that's like earned and found, not like fed necessarily.
Absolutely. And it's like memory is associative and nonlinear. And so the like time-based linear narrative, if especially if you're trying to do like a rigorous oral history, then you might interview the same person 10 times over a period of multiple years to sort of try to seek this absolute truth or something like that, or like something that is more objective. But
Mm.
I've always found it, or it's like, I think this specific archive that you're contributing to ultimately has this like nonlinear quality of memory to it, where like we were all experiencing this huge transformation in art and also like this huge sort of shift in constraints. And so like walking through people's memories is like an end in itself.
Yeah, 100%.
Um, so that is my last interview question. And so what I'll do is shift to sharing screen and I'll edit this interstitial part out. But I'm going to have you read into the record the exhibition statement before we walk into the space. That's okay?
Yeah.
Or I guess yeah, you should do that. And then let me share the screen first.
All right. Welcome. Output Field presents its debut exhibition, Skin Garden, a collection of artworks discussing bodies through movement, space, sound, self, and fellow bodies. Skin Garden is body language. The 3 rooms inside this lobby present audiovisual reflections on our physical vessels as they relate to trauma, language, queerness, tradition, and multiplicity.
Thank you.
So now we're in commentating mode.
Yeah, so this is actually the first exhibition to do this, where we're in this dark space and there's this rotating tunnel of these undulating shapes. And it pulls us through the text that says Output Field presents Skin Garden, 3-dimensional musings in flesh.
Yeah.
And so now we see another copy of the statement. See that it's curated by Viv, Venus and Foil, and Salome Chatriot. We have these 3 like platforms that have the different exhibitions with a representative 3D object. So Walk-in's Welcome is these skin shaded shapes that are they have these really nice contours. They're not very jagged and they have some tattoos on them. And then there's a more spindly. I can see that this is a shape of a body, but it's very like liquidy and spread out, and it's in this like jet black, like obsidian reflective shape with a bunch of kind of like discs and other little spheres coming off of it.
Yes.
And then the third one is 3 different spines that are kind of all intertwined with each other, and that one is called Reconsider Flesh.
Yeah, and this whole thing is like enveloped in these tubular they have pores on it, dark sculptures. And one of the main poles, I guess, functions as a bridge to behind this triple platform where there's other information about live streams and stuff that happened during the exhibition opening.
Oh, I see. So are those videos that you took of the original exhibition tour documented back here?
Yeah. Yeah. If they're not by the time of this recording, they will be after. But yeah, this whole environment was designed by Kushagra, this Calcutta-based 3D artist. He did all of this platform, tubes, and other representative shapes that function as links to Output Field's website and donation link as well.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite like entry spaces that I've seen because it's so like representative of the whole show. And I love the like skin texture on these like different colored shapes where like the platform that all of the representative objects is on is this like silver reflective color, but it still has the texture of skin.
Yes.
Should we go into Walk-in's Welcome?
Yeah, let's.
Where's the portal?
think you can click. Oh,
Oh yeah, you can just, that was another hack that you can just walk right into it. So now
okay.
we're inside of the shape that we just walked into, but we've moved to another room.
Yeah.
Um, so there are all of these like waving, undulating contours of skin, and you can see all of this tattoo flash on it. All of these like abstract black tattoos. So it has an almost like balloon animal like quality to it, or like combination of balloon animal and like ribbon and liquid.
Hmm. Yeah, that flash is by Hyodomachine. Now she's in Germany. But yeah, she uses 3D software to design her tattoos. Very sick.
And now we're looking at a tattoo that is currently on my body.
That's true. This is a tattoo that I designed in VR and eventually tattooed on Sammie. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that this was a translation of a 3D shape that was sculpted in VR. So it has the sort of human brushstroke quality, but it's in 3D of this kind of continuous tubular shape that is, it forms some loops and some knots on itself. But I was just so in love with the way this three-dimensional thing was translated into 2D and sort of what is lost and what is gained in that exchange.
Yeah, it's a funny process where it's like first it started 3D in VR, immersive. Then it was turned into a flat image, 2D. Then we put it in a mesh to make it 3D on this thing. Then we put it on you, which is arguably 4D or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, I love time as a spatial variable in the piece, and I love that it's making this transit multiple times.
Mhm.
So where should we go? Should I go into this darkness?
Yeah, go into the darkness. On the left, you can see another piece. Yeah, follow these, go left a little bit more, yeah. Yeah, this is a piece by Ilya Zarkov, and he basically manipulated a bunch of images and warped them. And it was also this like 3D spacifying software, like app on his phone, but I'm not quite sure what it's called. And this guy's based in Moscow. And
Yeah,
then
this one has a lot more of a solid shape to it with some brush strokes on it. So it's outlined and it has almost like a mountainous quality where there are these sort of wider protuberances and then there's like some like narrow static and then it goes wide again. And there's a
yeah.
sort of slight green gradient on it also. It's very painterly. This honestly looks like it was photographed off of skin, not as a drawing.
Mm. And then if you just look up right here, there's a Shanghai-based artist. It's sort of like a girl head, or like a bunny head, where the bunny ears are having this sort of liquid, refractive quality to them, all in black and white. And the eyes of this head are yin yang symbols, and the whole thing is sort of rendered in this oogly reflective pattern.
Yeah, there's a lot of mirroring, and it seems like the yin yang eyes are also kind of like the thorax of a spider, and then you have the spider
Yeah.
legs and head coming off of each of the eyes. Almost looks spray painted, and then the body is it's quite mirrored, but it's also yeah quite like melty, like it was distorted by a noise field or something. So you have these
Mhm.
different kind of uh, mirrored bubbles of black inside of the outline.
Yeah, and one thing I really like about that is how the bunny ears form over the structure of this kind of like cavern that we're in. They just as if they're like tossed over this ridge made by the main shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I had it like upside down that were
Yeah.
now I'm looking at it right side up. And so you have this kind of three swipes of black across the forehead that kind of look like bangs. And then above that you have these warpy ears. And then the eyes are kind of low on the face, and then there's like a tiny little mouth that kind of reminds me of like one of those animes. I can't remember which one. Maybe it was Super Milk Chan.
Mhm. Yeah, this one's cutie. Yeah, I think that about covers the tattoos in here. Also, throughout this space, you can hear the various tattoo sounds that we were mentioning before.
Yeah, it's so funny how I kind of conflate these things in my memory that I realize Reconsider Flesh is probably what I expected to see when I walked in here.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
So we're back in the
All
lobby to
Unfilled
go
presents
find
Skin Garden,
bodies
a
in here.
collection of three-dimensional musings in
Let's go.
flesh,
Let's go
presented
reconsider
in
Flesh.
three
Oh, okay.
rooms. This exhibition is
So we're
an
going
honor.
into this three spine snaky sculpture that represents Reconsider Flesh. This is the room with the most sculptures inside. I think there's like 20 something sculptures, bodily vibe sculptures inside. And this entire room, it's essentially a room. This cavern that we're in, this little grotto, is sculpted by Salome Chatriot, and she used breathing data to somehow generate the shapes that we're going to be walking around in here.
Wow. So the scale is massive, and in the other ones we were flying, but in this one we're walking.
Yes.
So we're in this grotto that's in these kind of undulating metallic textures, and there are all of these unreal, like speculative bodies. It's almost like Garden of Earthly Delights styles, and what we were on facing these two really, really tall beings that are very muscular and like nude and have kind of hands for feet that are the hands are like spiders, and they're all super tattooed, and you're like looking up at them. And then the archway that they're like dancing over is like a keyhole. Wow. Jump up and look at all these tattoos. And the sound design was like really unsettling in here.
Yeah, it's very wet sound. Just like the lobby sound a little bit. They share similar qualities. I forgot to mention the lobby's soundscape is by Tuba Greer-Williams.
Mhm.
But yeah, this one is by Bella Baguena. And this is the one where it has her like interpretation of Gordon Hall's essay about the word the body, the phrase the body. So the
Yeah,
thesis of this whole room is sort of showing like, look at all the things that bodies could be, that look at all the ways that we think about bodies and think about what they could look like, what they do look like.
yeah, these like arching bodies are really they're so alien. Like the eyes are like whited out, and they have these like fangs and these like enormous elf ears that are pushing back. And we have multiple like very photoreal, like bald, like nude femme figures, two of which are like intertwined with these like glassy structures, and you can see in fact the glass is kind of an echo of these two intertwined bodies, and then on the left it's like surrounded by these semi-transparent rings.
Mm-hmm.
I see these are by a Hardmetacore called Rebirth and Frozen Angels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Frozen Angels is by VZ and a different artist.
Oh, I see. But they're so like thematically related. They really look like they're part of the same series. I love that. So now we're going into one of these like inner folds, and there are these two spindly line drawn. These look like they're cast out of metal, very like drippy purple metal things, and there are these humanoid faces with tentacles coming out of the mouths. They're on kind of four-ish tentacle legs, and the front ones have these like spindly fingers.
Yeah, and covering their face is this equally spindly, oogly mask. It almost looks like, well, one of them has a more flat covering of this almost algae vibe goop, and the other one almost looks like it's spitting out like spider legs, or there's cordyceps flowing out of its mouth. Shout out.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of the monsters in Fallout 4 or Fallout 3.
Yeah.
And then inside of this like inner bulb that's kind of split open in the center of this grotto is another kind of avatar figure where the skin is these like gradients of black and red, and then it has these like armor embellishments in orange that look very like organic. There's like a chest plate with these shoulder parts, and then there's like a mirrored face mask that maybe almost looks like wings. It's like the Hermes mask. I'm trying to like jump up to see it. That's not really gonna work. I like that it enforces scale, that you have to be like looking up at these giant bodies. Ooh, this is Deborah Silva, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, their work is amazing. They also showed in one of Corsica Studios' shows.
Oh, cool.
And so they have 3 sculptures here. The first one, indelible. There's this kind of like bronze, like naked goblin with breasts and like holding a Hitachi, like riding a humanoid pig with like, hands and feet that's like wrapped in this beaded necklace. Then we have these are very like homunculus characters where like the hands and feet are enormous and they have these huge pink nails. This is like another femme nude who's standing with like legs spread wide and like knees bent, with like a chain suspending an inverted like brass heart coming like straight out of the anus. And it has these like anklets. And then the third one is a similar form with the hanging heart, but sort of chest is like puffed out and like arms are kind of flailing and head is tilted back.
Yeah, and the whole inner cavern you see here, like the textures of the wall, sometimes you can see veins. It has this sort of sunset golden hour cast to it. And it feels like you're almost like it's golden hour inside like an organ or like lungs or something like that.
Oh, I love that. I know, I just noticed the veins. I thought that was really cool. And I specifically remember you saying like, can we change this Venice sunset ass HDRI?
Yeah.
So now in this chamber in the back, we have a bunch of different like super tall, like pink mottled fat bodies. One of them is dancing. It has kind of like a doughy like baby face that's all distorted, and there's somebody who's like falling with this very like grotesque look on its face with this like painted on makeup and like low poly like spiny green hair and like fingers sort of the geometry is kind of like pulling apart. And then this other one is very much just like melting flesh, standing with hands crossed above head and like feet together in kind of a terrified pose. Maybe more of a menacing pose. It's hard to say.
Very saturated pink. It's very intense. Like somehow it's like spiritual or religious. It's like very erect, this statue. It's like feels important somehow.
Yeah, they're in these processes of like floating or falling. Like 2 of them are like this other one here is more like pink flesh, and it's kind of like moving in gravity, but it's like a snapshot in time. And then up against the ceiling, there's another one of these figures that's much more like saturated red, holding a pair of scissors, and it seems like it's holding some kind of like big black cat, or it's in conflict with a giant big black cat, and there's like a splatter of Pepto-Bismol above it on the ceiling. I can't really tell what it's holding.
That's just hair, the black hair.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but it's holding like maybe eyeballs or something.
That are
Like
impaled on this little
eyeballs and
shaped metal thing.
yeah, probably holding eyeballs by the veins, like dangling,
Ah,
and then cutting cutting the vein, preparing to cut the vein somehow.
I see. So these are all by an artist named BORA.
Yeah, Bora also makes music.
Mm-hmm.
FYI. And then out here.
Ooh, this is very, very like it kind of reminds me of like the like Katamari. It's very mirrored, very like psychedelic, but you can see it's taking the shape of an ovary, or like a uterus and ovaries, and it has this kind of gold and red snake skin texture, and there are all of these bodies with eyes whited or faces with eyes whited out all around it, kind of ringing the top of the uterus, and there some of them are like scattered on the ground with these glowing purple eyes. One of them has a tattoo across the like meridian of the face with a diamond on the forehead.
Mhm. Yeah, these are faces pulled from a collective queer uh queer music collective, DJ collective in Shanghai, called HTTP. That's why this piece is called HTTP, and it's made by Shanghai-based artist Mengki. But yeah, this was I think part of their like maybe coming out as a collective, like an art piece associated with that.
Yeah, it has this sort of simultaneous like uterine and snake-like quality. Like it also has this like coiled tail beneath it, and it's
Yeah,
like rising up. It feels very like snake
Cobra.
god-like.
Hmm.
It's so easy to get lost in here.
Yeah.
Ah, so I found something else. Now we have this big black shiny rib cage with way too many ribs. That's sort of it's filling up the arch of this cavern. And then we have more like bodies in motion where the like feet and hands are like pulled out so you can't, or it's like I can barely see that there might be a face, but the hands, feet, and face are all very distorted. Um,
Yeah, distorted and contorted. It looks like the distortion is like a result of being so contorted or something.
Yeah, and this one it's very like calcified. Got almost a
Mhm.
pearlescent texture, but when you can see like a pretty photoreal face, and then you can see that some of the vertices were just pulled off, so it's forming these very pointy triangles off of the face. Um, and then like the back it's sort of just like turning into triangles till you get to the bottom, and it's just sort of completely non-representational.
Yeah, it almost the position of it, it's this um sort of mask body and the legs are twisted and braided.
Hmm.
It's giving mermaid.
Yeah, it's a messed up mermaid. And we have another figure that's way taller than us that's like lunging, and the skin texture is super photoreal. Like you can see like the pores on like a recently shaved leg, and you can kind of make out breasts, and there is and it has a huge like plastic penis, and then the arms are all they're super elongated all the way down to the ground, and like the tops of the hands are like dragging against the ground. Um, and then there's another where like it's like sitting on the ground, and the breasts and belly are super exaggerated, and the head is twisted at like an unnatural angle. The hands are huge, and the feet are huge, and then the legs are all distorted where it was like twisted and pulled. This almost looks like a yogic position, but like the arm is bent at this really unnatural angle.
But somehow it's like reclined and relaxed as well.
Yeah, I love how the faces are really hidden. It's hard to like make contact with them. Like this face is all twisted around, and then the actual face part is obscured by white. Too shy.
Too shy.
Ooh, and there are now three very like pearlescent white figures that where like you can see these components of bodies, but the head is all like tubular around, and then there are all of these semi-transparent like gushing shapes. Like a huge amount of water is like suspended in midair. I really love how you got the transparency to look in this one.
Yeah, that was a win for sure.
And this one's more, it has like a snail body, and then it almost looks like toothpaste or like melted marshmallows, and it's holding this flower scepter. And there's like a foot in like a low poly, like almost looks like one of those Yeezy sneakers. And there's the like slime trail coming out of the front of the snail shell back that's like swooping around the body.
Mhm.
And then this last one is very intertwined. There are lots of these different body shapes, like arms gripping arms. I see like a lot of different hands, and then like maybe another hand as the central feature, and some of these parts are like gushing out this same suspended liquid. The show is so dense. There's just so much stuff. I mean, we haven't even seen this one yet, have we?
Yeah, there's a couple more, I think. We're almost done. Yeah, this one's by Sarah Blomey in UK. It's this sort of you can tell it's a sort of reclining body with legs, but there's no head, there's barely a torso, and all the texture looks almost like coral. And yeah, the edges are rough, and it's not quite pore. The texture of it isn't quite pores, it's more like a rough coral, and the shapes of it follow that texture, and the whole thing feels like a sort of empty, sort of like a thickness of coral wrapping around what would be remnants of a body.
Yeah, it's almost like goosebumps.
Yeah,
Or even I'm kind of getting like like the shape of crab legs almost. Like
yeah.
yeah, it's very reminiscent of a body, but unlike a lot of these other sculptures, it bears no sort of clear resemblance. But yeah, I can see the like thighs, and then the like calves sort of raised up.
Yeah, and just to sort of locate us right now, we're on the outside of this quote breathing grotto. It's sort of we were walking inside, and now we've been circling around this structure, and the things with each sculpture that's being featured, most of them are encapsulated or covered by these way too many dark obsidian rib cages.
Thank you. And now we're in the very back, which is like I think if you turn around at the entrance, like now I'm seeing those first sculptures that we saw that were mirrors of each other, but by two different artists of the bodies with like echoing transparency, and the one that is suspended in these rings. And so we're now looking at there's one black woman who is suspended in the air, and she looks really serene, like she's sleeping, and she's enveloped by this like obsidian blanket. And then there's another black woman who's in flight with her hair all back, and it's a very like ballet pose. She's like nude in this like flowing cape, and her left thigh is raised, and then her foot is like turned inward, like she's leaping. Oh, this is Victoria Cribb. Wow, that's amazing. I love her.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks very much like these women are swimming in broken up liquidy fabrics of black glistening like texture.
Yeah, I love how movement is conveyed in these static sculptures.
Mm-hmm.
And I also love that we've managed to like make a loop, even though I felt like I was getting lost. Like I think we've now been through the whole space.
All we have is these ones up ahead that were behind us when we started, like
Oh,
behind
I see.
Inner Flesh.
Oh yeah, these very like chrome, like insectoid things. There's one like black shape with a bunch of these like protuberances on it, and then it has these like clear tubes running in and out of it and around it. And then there's one that looks like these are kind of reflective puffer pants, and a person is like crouched around their knees wearing like a black puffer jacket, but then where the feet and hands should be, there are these tubes coming out. And then the last one behind it is another like humanoid figure with like thighs spread apart and hands above the head, and the head is kind of like it's like a pulled out Hershey kiss. And yeah, how would you describe this like structure that's surrounding it?
Sort of this like chrome viscera in a loop, like you know that fat that covers certain organs that they sell? It's like
It's like a capillary net of chrome
Yeah.
that's like intersecting with the body.
yeah, like a torus of capillaries.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's
I
like
love the
piercing
collaborative visual
through.
description.
What was that?
I love the collaborative visual description too. That like, especially as you get more abstract, it gets so subjective.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, let's go to the finale.
Woo. Figured we would end with a bang.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Output field presents
Yeah,
skin
Cuba Greer Williams did
garden.
such a good job with this
Collection of
soundscape.
three-dimensional musings
They
in
had
flesh,
to introduce the
presented in
whole
3 rooms.
concept of the thing and
This
make something that, you know, could fit and like incorporate all of the themes. And yeah, they did a lot of cool work with a contact mic, and I think they maybe like stuck it in steak or something, or like put it in wet stuff.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it was very it's like the aesthetic of the voice was very aligned with the aesthetic of the space.
Yeah. So here we are.
Resident of queer affect. So we're in a super dark space, and we're ringed by these rotating rings of like illegible text. It definitely looks like text, but it looks like it's been distorted beyond recognition. But I wonder, maybe this is the text that you were working with verbally as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's being sort of intermittently lit up in red, and they're all of them around. It looks very cyber, it looks very matrix. And then there's this enormous undulating dancing shape that you can't really apprehend all of it, but it's making all of these superhuman movements with a very like non-human looking structure. And it keeps like going through the camera and moving quickly and slowly. For like no matter where you move, you can't really sense the whole thing.
Yeah, there's sort of this central structure that feels like a very like muscular, maybe like a muscular limb. But as it extends out, you can see a more sort of like nervous system vibe, stringy with orbs, extending out tendril things. And they're connected in some parts and independent in some parts, and the whole thing is sort of moving in this slow but twitchy but fast sometimes way. And it's I think multiple parts of this are anchored to the mocap data from the Queer Movement Archive.
Yeah, I mean, I just love taking data from the movement of a body and using it to animate something that is more non-human. And like, oh wow, the way the red light is playing on the reflectiveness of the dancer is really arresting. And it's like, yeah, the central trunk structure it's very like root-like, and they kind of expand and contract as the body moves.
Yeah, like if I were to describe the movement verbally, it would be like, or like sonically, it'd be like boom, 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 and then like suddenly you're just like looking at a different part of the body, and then again like and then it's like totally different position again. So it's like very unpredictable, but you can still tell that there's sort of human movement, organic elements in it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the sound here, like we said, is a collection of recordings, distorted recordings of queer cohort reading Venus and Foyle's essay about queer affect in the club. And Betty Apple, Taiwanese-based sound artist, wove those together along with her own reading of the essay in Chinese and in English. In Mandarin, I should say. Yeah, and this space was co-curated by me and Venus and Foyle.
And is that essay attached like as a PDF in the catalog?
Oh, we should make that. So, it's somewhere in Skin Garden's like main site, which is just outputfield.com/skingarden. All of the sort of like archival material, like transcripts, all of those stuff can be found there, including the opening events, like the digital like Zoom opening.
That's excellent. I love that you like took care to do that. Yeah, this is such like an impressionistic body that like these different, it's anywhere I go, the contours, like different contours become visible, and it seems like no matter how far I try to zoom out, I can't see the whole body, where it keeps receding into darkness and then coming back at me. You can't get over how cool this light looks around it, because it's like
Yeah,
shooting around all of the contours really quickly, and it's these tiny little pulses of light.
Yeah, it makes it look like the figure is almost translucent, and it reminds me of like laser red light like shining through, you know, prism or something like that. Like it's hard to tell if it's reflecting or like refracting.
Yeah, and all of these tiny dots that are like following the contour of the body. I have no idea how that was done.
Yeah, I work with me. And then also, if you like any of these sounds, the soundscapes from the lobby, from this space, from Reconsider Flesh are all on SoundCloud, on our SoundCloud.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, there are just like so many ways to experience this. I think it's so multifaceted, and I'm really, it's so nice to return here, and it's just like amazing how they all work in relation.
Temple with the face remarkable. FaceTime like this, where one can linger in the beat, in the rupture, in the cluck, 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 cluck. What we are is the possibility of glimpsing that impossible love.
For hours, days, seemingly months, years.
That impossible love. For hours, days, seemingly months, years.
Went through hell to get here.
Amazing. Well,
Great fade out.
yeah.
You're New York City DJ.
Yeah, so anybody who's watching this, I really encourage you, especially to explore this one on your own because it's just going to be different anytime you experience it, and it's so rewarding to explore on your own. Viv, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to reiterate, outputfield.com/skin garden. You can find all the stuff there. There's YouTube clips of our openings. If you want more insight on the bodies on Hinge, we had a whole discussion about that with Betty Apple, the person who did the soundscape, and IOR50, the two artists who did the dancing figure, and also us curators, me and Venus and Foil. And then there's also another video of us, of just readings of texts that informed the space and yeah, interpretations of it, I think, afterwards.
That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.